We now come to our honorary graduate. I'm just going to bring facial audience. The University of Brighton's highest honour is an honorary doctorate. We give honorary doctorates with thought, with care, and with the preciousness that we hold that award. So I'm absolutely delighted that we have today an alumnus of the university to receive our honorary doctorate. I will now call upon Professor Andrew Lloyd, Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Academic Operations, to introduce our new honorary doctor.
Vice-Chancellor, distinguished guests, graduates, families and friends, it is my honour to introduce Cressida Cowell. When the university considers awarding honorary degrees, it seeks individuals who have not only pushed the boundaries of their field for the benefit of society more widely, but who also reflect the values that are important to us here at Brighton: creativity, sustainability, partnership and inclusivity. Today we seek to honour such an individual. Cressida Cowell is an internationally best-selling author and illustrator. She is probably best known to many of you for her How to Train Your Dragon book series, which has sold over 8 million books worldwide in 38 languages. It is also an award-winning DreamWorks film series and a TV series shown on Netflix and CBBC. Whilst Cressida grew up in London, as a child, she and her family would spend several weeks each year on a small, uninhabited island off the west coast of Scotland. It was here that her father would tell tales of the Vikings who invaded that part of the world, the quarrelsome tribes who fought and tricked each other, and of the legends of dragons who were supposed to live in the caves in the cliffs. The first best-selling book in Cressida's latest series, The Wizards of Once, also draws on inspiration from a distinctive landscape. Not the island of Scotland this time, but our own local Sussex countryside, where Cressida also used to come and stay as a young child. Its rolling downs, ancient woodlands, and Iron Age hill forts are all fired Cressida's imagination and now form the basis for a magical and thoroughly engaging new world. Cressida's literary achievements are underpinned by a broad academic base. She has a BA in English Literature from Oxford University, a BA in Graphic Design from St Martin's, and I'm delighted to say, an MA in Narrative Illustration from the University of Brighton. Her How to Train Your Dragon books have been acclaimed by many critics as proper modern classics and one of the greatest inventions of modern children's literature. This is perhaps no small part because Cressida refuses to write down to her audience, but rather seeks to challenge and engage them on historical, political, emotional, and moral themes. Her ability to do so has not gone unnoticed, and in 2015 resulted in her receiving the Philosophy Now Award for contributions in the fight against stupidity for, in their words, inciting children to reason and to question and to inspire their imaginations and inquisitiveness. Nothing combats stupidity in the world more effectively than encouraging children to think. As well as being a best-selling author and illustrator, Cressida is also a passionate advocate for children's literacy. She is an ambassador for the National Literacy Trust, which works to improve reading, writing, speaking and listening skills in the UK's poorest communities, and the Reading Agency, whose mission is to inspire more people to read more, encourage them to share their enjoyment of reading and celebrate the difference that reading makes to all our lives. She is also founder patron of the Children's Media Foundation, which is dedicated to ensuring UK children have access to the best possible media content on all platforms at all ages. As well as her award for the fight against stupidity, Cressida has won numerous prizes for her books, including the Gold Award in Nestlé's Children's Book Prize and the Hay Festival Medal for Fiction. And in July last year, she succeeded another University of Brighton graduate, Chris Riddell, when she was named the UK's latest Children's Laureate. It gives me great pleasure that we can today add our university recognition to Cressida's significant existing role of honour. Vice-Chancellor, distinguished guests, graduates, families and friends, in recognition of her major contribution to children's literature and illustration, and her promotion to children's literacy, it is my honour to present Cressida Cowell for the honorary degree of Doctor of Arts of the University of Brighton.
Cressida, in recognition of your amazing contribution towards children's literacy and towards illustration, it is my great honour to make you a Doctor of Arts of the University of Brighton. Will you address the audience?
I will. Thank you so much. Can I give you a hug?
All right. Oh, already
Thank you so much. I feel quite tearful, actually. It sounded very good when you put it like that. I want to start by thanking Brighton University so much for this incredible honour. I can't tell you how delighted and flattered I am. And it's just extraordinary. It's wonderful. But I must also admit it's a bit bittersweet, because you suddenly realise 25 years have passed since you graduated from university, and you find yourself thinking about how you've changed and what you've learnt since then, and you have an uncontrollable urge to give some advice. So I'm so sorry. I'm going to do feel free to ignore it. I've just restricted it to 3 things. The first thing is to try and do what you are obsessed by, what you couldn't live without doing, whatever that might be. And then work won't feel like work. Your obsession could be, finding a cure to terrible diseases, or some of the solutions to some of the terrible environmental challenges that face us. But your obsession could also be something that is not that cool. It may be a bit quirky. This does not matter. In my case, my obsession from a very early age was writing and illustrating children's books, and getting books into the hands of all children, and getting children reading for the pleasure of it, just like I read when I was a kid. But what that meant for me as an art student was that I spent my whole time on my BA at St Martin's with all these other students standing up saying, "This is my project on death, and this is my project on the rise of fascism." And then I'd have to stand up and say, "And this is my project on Mrs. Orange, the talking carrot." What could I do? It was my obsession, and you've got to go with your obsession. And getting children reading is so important. We cannot lose books as a medium. If you don't already know what your obsession is, try to take time to find it. And if you do go find it, go for it as hard as you can and write the best children's books about talking carrots or dragons that you possibly can. Secondly, I'm going to quote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy here and say, don't panic. Go at your own pace and don't look to left and right. Looking back on my 20s, this is the biggest piece of advice I wish I'd known. I would never have dreamt I could be here when I was in my 20s. There were so many other people who seemed to be getting on with their careers, while frankly I didn't seem to be getting anywhere, and it was hard not to feel I was being left behind. So don't feel that. Looking back, I realized I needed that time to learn and experiment in order to get better at what I was doing. It's important to remember it's not a race. And that goes for all through your life. In my experience, people's lives and careers go up and down, so never compare yourself to anyone else. I have an old school friend who has spent the last 20 years being a writer and a director, not wildly successfully, not with a great deal of recognition, but very happily because he was doing what he was obsessed by. And you're always happy when you're doing what you're obsessed by. But he did hit a low patch a while ago when he couldn't get any work for 2 years. And so he applied for a job working as a sales assistant at Waterstones to make ends meet, and he didn't get it. It went to some clever 25-year-old, so he was rather low. But then a year or so later, I bumped into him in the park, and he was all excited about a new project he was directing, couldn't stop talking about it, and I was so delighted for him, and it became the most successful thing he'd ever done. He won a BAFTA, and is now directing some Hollywood film. So don't waste time comparing yourself to other people. It's not a race. So you never know what is the next chapter of your story. Thirdly, be creative, but also be practical. Meet deadlines. If you're ever struggling with a deadline, think of William Shakespeare. In the single year of 1599, Shakespeare completed Henry V, wrote the whole of Julius Caesar and As You Like It, and drafted Hamlet. If he can do that, while London is being shut down by the plague and his theatre is being burned down round his ears, you can definitely meet that deadline, guys. And the last thing I'd like to say is not advice, really. It's just a reminder. Be thankful. Give back. People love to be thanked, and this is an opportunity for me to thank the people who taught me back when I was on the MA course at Brighton. It was incredibly inspirational. It was the first time I was taught with such inspiration and such practicality at the same time. They embraced the carrot. What is the carrot's motivation? They said, yeah? But they were so, I still remember one of Chris Mullin's lectures on Goodfellas. I mean, just unbelievable. I love Brighton because the university and even the town itself felt to me like such an inspiring, creative, entrepreneurial kind of a place. And if it's still like that now, which I think it is, I'd urge you to take that creative spirit into the rest of your lives. I'm going to quote Einstein, because he was a very clever man. No problem can be solved with the same mindset that created it. Now more than ever, when there are so many hydra-headed political and scientific and environmental challenges facing the world, we need people like you who can think imaginatively and outside the box. So thank you to George Hardy and Chris Mullin and John Vernon Lord, my truly inspirational tutors 25 years ago. I wrote my first book on this course here, that was my first book that was published here. Thank you to the University of Brighton for giving me this honour. I'm so honoured. And thank you to all you students for putting in your hard work for so many years and for getting to this great place. Thank you to all the parents in this room who've supported you all in getting this far. Thank you. Thank you.